I think there's just, like the quality of writing depends on the quality of your reading. Like the better books you read, the better thoughts you'll have, the better ideas you'll get because there really aren't any like new ideas or anything out there. But so if you read like quality stuff, you'll end up thinking about it, and then that kind of comes out in your inputs. It's kind of just like eating. If you eat quality food, the outputs are better. So I think yeah, if you're just spending all your time reading the news or just watching like TikTok videos, it won't be as or you won't have as deep thoughts or as you know uh just better ideas as if you were reading some type of quality books. So I think yeah, if you want to become a better writer, or Stephen King has this famous line, it's like if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. So I think that just goes to show, like, if you want to be a great writer, you need to study great writing, and to do that you need to do a lot of reading.
Yeah, and speaking of that, when it comes to your writing, when you're talking about threads or kind of like on X, how do you do those? Like, how do you capture your, when you write headlines and some of the copyright in there that makes it capture people's attention? How do you think about writing on different social networks?
So there's like a famous 80/20 rule where if you spend 80%, you could get if you put in spend the majority of the time doing one thing, it makes a huge difference. So like for that, I would spend 80% of my time just on the idea or the headline, and then 20% on the rest of the content. It's kind of the same thing as you see with YouTubers. Like if you don't get people to click on the thumbnail, they won't watch the rest of the video. So when it comes to like writing online, especially like Twitter, you need to spend the majority of time just on the headline, trying to hook people into that. And then then they'll hopefully read the rest of your content. So for any new writers out there, I think too many of them spend most of the time kind of on the meat of the writing, but no one clicks on the post or on the thread, they'll never get to that. So you actually want to front load the value, or like spend most of your time on the first few sentences, instead of spending all your time like in the middle or at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of like when people talk about like keeping everything above the fold on a website. Is like you want the thing that captures the most attention at the top, so then people kind of continue to read down the line. When you're talking about, so when we switch a little bit to news writing, newsletter writing, or blog writing, what are some of your best practices there? Is it very similar, or do you think about that differently?
Uh, a little bit. So I like the concept of like sell your sawdust. So for the newsletters, like you know kind of share something that you're already doing. So for my newsletter, every week I share like a short book summary, and I share three lessons from the book and three ways to apply that. Because that's basically what I'm doing. Every week I'm reading a book. I try to pull out like, okay, what are some key lessons from this book? And also how can I apply them to my life? And that my newsletter just sharing that information with the public. So like for instance, I just read this book, The Boron Letters, which is like a copywriting book. So I pulled out, three copywriting lessons from that book, and then also like three ways to apply that. And people really enjoy that newsletter. So I think when it comes to like your newsletter, you kind of want to share what you're already doing and just make it public.
Yeah, and I'm speaking of copyright. I know David Ogilvy basically has a quote to sum it up. He says, "You're not advertising to a moving. I mean, you're not advertising to a standing army. You're advertising to a moving parade." So when
Yeah.
you think about that, when it comes to copyright, like how do you feel like how do you think about that when it comes to capturing attention? And especially with social media, where now algorithms play into things. Like, how do you think about capturing your audience in that way?
Yeah, so I think a good tip there is just to like look at your best performing content, and you kind of want to schedule it out every few months to repost it,
Yeah.
because if you have a post go viral, maybe 10% of your audience has seen it. So that means 90% of your audience hasn't. And also, you're gaining new followers, you're losing followers, people coming in and out. So it's kind of crazy to think about, like, if you have an incredibly performing post, the majority of audience still hasn't seen your best content. So I try to like, schedule my or repost my best content every few months. And then also like, if I'm working on something, I kind of want to talk about it so many times that it starts to get annoying to me, because that means like people will finally start to hear about it like once or twice or maybe three times, because no follower, even if they're super loyal or a big fan of you, consumes 100% of your content. It's just impossible to do. So you kind of want to reshare your best stuff. And then if you have an important project that you want to share with people, talk about it so many times that it starts to feel annoying to you, and that's like a good sign that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because like recently, even with myself, I was like, I'll post something, I see it works, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna continue doing the same thing. I'll change up some of the headlines, I'll change up some of footage. But now it's like, again, with that quote, I always think about, is like, only your small percentage of your audience are seeing these things. You can do the same thing over again and repurpose content. I just think not enough people think about that. I know Gary Vee talks about it. So if you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookumapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.